In this session, what I propose to do is to show you how you can select work, set it easily using to-dos with the ready-made to-dos, and a few of the new features that have appeared that you may not be familiar with. We're also going to look at how and where the feedback, marking and assessment takes place, and at creating differentiated resources so you can send it out to individuals, to groups, to whole classes, but it's then going to be appropriate for each pupil's own particular level of ability. So here we are on the home page. We'll start off by clicking on the Topics tab down in this bottom corner. When you open it, you can see there's a whole wealth of folders for you to choose from. If you hover over any of them, it gives you a brief indication of what you will find inside. I think the one I'm going to look at today is the 1930s, 1940s. So I click and open the folder, and inside I find a number of different activities that have already been created for me. I'm going to look at transport. I've already looked at it. I know that it's something the pupils can do at their own level of ability, so I don't need to differentiate it. What I'm going to do is just set it as a to-do by clicking on this button here. We then get this card that appears. You can, if you wish, edit the title. You can also edit the description, which in effect is what you're asking the pupils to do. You can record your voice, giving the instructions for those pupils who find it difficult to follow written instructions. And then here we have something which may be new to a lot of you. Click here to set objectives. So I'll click. When I'm setting my piece of work, I know what it is I'm going to be looking at. I select my year group, year 4. I select my subject, which for this I'm going to look at some English writing ability. I'm going to look at composition, and I'm going to look at whether the pupil can draft and write around a theme, and I'm also going to look at whether they can evaluate and proofread. Okay, they're the things I've set. When I come to look at this to-do, when they've all been handed in, I then have this as a reminder of what it is that I'd like the pupils to have achieved. I can add more objectives if I wish. I could go along and say that I'm also looking at the history and look at the strand. And again, you can see we have all of these different areas. We've got extended chronological studies. You could look at local history, and you can see that the objectives just pop up for you right next to the appropriate area. So I've saved those objectives. I can see I've got 3 there. The other thing I think is also quite useful is to enter a tag. Tags are going to be very helpful because at any point you'll be able to use the search bar over here, and this will enable you to pull together all of your history to-dos, all of your computer science to-dos, all of your maths, whatever tags you decide to put on. And also if you're working across the school as a teacher, you may want to put your initials in so that you can separate out any to-dos that you've set that are different from the ones that a class teacher may have set. Because this particular one, I'm looking at English, I'm going to put English as my tag. I'm also going to put history, so I know that it's in the context of history, and it could be pulled up for both. Next, set date. That's quite handy because if you actually are doing your planning, and your planning is, say, on a Monday, but you don't want the pupils to actually do a piece of work until the Thursday, just put Thursday's date in. It won't appear in their portal until that particular date. You can also do a hand-in date, you don't have to, but sometimes it's nice just to have a finite ending to a particular piece of work. Restrict access. This means that you can set whether you want the work to be done at school so that you know it's been done by the pupil without any external help. It can be done at home, so you can actually set it so it is specifically a homework, or it can just be left to be done at any time. When it comes to repeats, this is particularly useful if you're doing things like the spellings, or if you're doing multiplication table quizzes, that sort of stuff. It will automatically generate repeat to-dos. I've now jumped on to the next page, which allows me to assign my to-dos. If I click Classes, Demo, which is the name of my class, Set To-Do, everybody in my whole class will get that piece of work when they log in to their particular area. However, if I want to only have certain children do it, clicking on that little arrow at the side shows me all of the pupils, and I can switch on and switch off individuals. The other way you might like to look at it is by creating groups. And what I have here, I know I've got my red group, which is top, my blue, which is my middles, and my yellow, which is my bottom group. I could just assign the work to my middle group, Set To Do. And then when we've had a look in a short while at how you can differentiate work, I could have altered it to make it easier or more difficult for the other groups to do. But for the case that we're doing at the moment, I'll just set the to-do for my whole class and click. Simple as that. Close. At any point I can go and have a look and I can see my to-dos, anything that I might have set. And the most recent one for a teacher always comes down at the bottom of the list. You can see here we've got our tags for English and history. And at any point I can just click and go and view the folder. What you'll notice here is we've got a highlighted area, and what's really clever about the to-dos is that every time you set a to-do, it creates a folder which is dated for you. All of the work is collected back into that folder, so you haven't got to go through and look at every single pupil's folder and dip into those to find any work that they've completed and handed in. So I have my to-dos folder. There's no files in it yet. But what I can now do is go and have a quick look and see what this will look like for a pupil when they get the work. I click on Admin and I can impersonate a pupil. I'll impersonate Ben. Impersonate pupil. And this is what it looks like. Ding-a-ling, they've got an alert. Anything that the pupil gets that's new goes on the top of the list. Here it says you've got a new to do, transport. Let's go to it. And they go to that particular piece of work that you have created for them. They have more information that they could be looking at. Helpful, they haven't got to go out into the big wide world of the internet. And then okay, I'm happy with that. The pupil then creates their piece of work. They can add a picture, zoom in on it, and then they can save it. When it saves as them. It will only save as them because they've logged in as themselves into their own personal space. If I now come out of this particular activity, you can see on our list of to-dos, which at any point the pupil can click here and find what they still have to do. It's asking us on our particular piece of work here, do we want to continue it or hand it in? I'm going to pretend that we've actually finished this piece of work. So I click hand in, and I can now leave a note for my teacher. I think I have done very well in my research here. I'll give myself a thumbs up. This button allows the pupils to actually give verbal feedback as well. I click OK. Now it's changed colour. We can see the feedback the pupil has given to the teacher. In effect, this is now sort of published, I suppose. And what you can do as a pupil, you can open the work, you can view it, you can see it, but you can't alter it. So now we're going to go back to see what it looks like for the teacher. Ding-a-ling, here we are, another alert. Click. Work from To-Do Transport has been handed in. Go to it. This jumps you straight away to the folder that was created for you when you set the to-do originally. It's all in this work area. We can see here it's Ben's work. It's tagged English and History. We can see to the minute when Ben actually published it, and we can see what Ben has said. As a teacher, I can add something. I think this is a very interesting piece of work. Well done, Ben. And we'll have a little exclamation mark too. I think Ben might get a star. If I click save, then Ben will get a notification in his area that says he has a comment on his piece of work. If I want to send it back for some further work, I can click on save and redo. Ben then gets the opportunity to edit his work and resubmit it. It will come back then as a separate version. Here you see it says judgments. If I click on that, I now have all of those objectives that I was wanting to look at when the piece of work came back in. It's a reminder for me. I can then make my judgment. I think he's at that level, that level, that level, and save. There we are. Judgment done. It's all gone into the system, and at any point I can come back and revisit this particular piece of work. Sometimes it's easier to show icons because I can then see as all of the other pupils' work starts to populate this particular area. And I can just click on Ben's work and see anything, quick glance, what's actually going on. When you have a to-do and you want to finish it, if everybody's handed their work in, what you can do is go up to the list of to-dos, click on the one that you want to close, either using the little box down the bottom in this corner or the close button here, and it gives you an option or a number of options. I tend to defer to the first option, copy to-do work files to pupil folders. What happens here is that you keep all of the original pieces of work in that original folder. That's in the work area, the one that was created when you actually set up the to-do. But if I select this option, when I click this OK button, what the system does is to make a copy of Ben's work and put it in Ben's area, and a copy of Eileen's work and put it in Eileen's area, so the pupils can see their work. The teacher doesn't have to go into individual pupil folders to find the work. They can just go back to the main one that was created at the start. So I'll click OK. And there we go. My list has become shorter, but if I go back into the work area, you can see that the All About Castles folder is still there. It's just not in my list. It keeps it all quite neat and tidy. What I have done in the My Work area is to set up a subfolder, created it using this little button here, for to-dos that I want to remove, because otherwise this also gets a rather long and exhaustive list. And what I can do is just drag and drop and move at any, just to keep this a more manageable number. So let's close these back down, tidy everywhere up. Okay. So now what we want to see is perhaps where some of that data went. I'm going to click on this data button, And we can see here, if I click to-dos, the ones that are still open. If I click on judgments and I go to my English writing and year 4 and composition, we can see here the judgments that I've been making, all of the objectives, nicely colour coordinated in traffic light colours. I move across, you can see how Ben is actually doing. As you can see, I haven't got a massively populated area, but we've started getting extra bits in. So at a glance, you can see how the pupils are doing across the class in a particular objective. Also, if there's any areas that haven't yet been looked at, as you can see here, read own writing hasn't had any kind of assessment made on it yet, but because it's in these traffic light colours, it's very quick at a glance to be able to see how people are actually getting on. You can click the button that says show most recent, how the pupils are working. You can also show it from various different periods, and if you had access to other bits, you can just select and see groups of children and how they might be achieving as well. Don't forget, there's always these helpful little purple screens at the side. If you're not quite sure what you're doing, click on those and you get some easy to follow videos. You might have noticed I skipped over scores. If I look at those, this data handling area also populates the areas for me. I don't have to be there, I don't have to put any information in. Just by actually doing the work, the pupils can be showing you what they're capable of. If I go through to something, for example, the quiz spellings, we can see on here who's been doing what. And these little add buttons are really, really useful. Because if I click on the add button, we can see here that Ben got some questions incorrect. If I click the add button, what it shows me are the ones he got correct on this particular date. The ones he got incorrect, note that it shows you the incorrect spelling as well as the one that was expected. And what happened when he did it on subsequent dates as well. In the multiplication tables check, you can drill down by activity, looking at the resources that we have available to you, the monster multiplication, the government assessment mode, and the one which is custom mode, where you have the ability to select times and which times tables you'd like the pupils to look at, or they can in fact create their own. If you show all and click on the add button for accuracy, what's happening is it's collecting all of the information. Now you can see on here, because it's the custom one, it's only showing the 2 times tables. If I then go to the government one, we can see where Ben is perhaps struggling with 1 or 2 of his times tables. Going back out to the home page, we've seen how we could actually set a piece of work as a to-do, a generic piece of work, one that all of the pupils could probably do at their own particular level of ability. You may want to just change certain parts to make it more appropriate for what you are actually doing, for what you're looking at. So what we'll do is select. I'm going to select aliens. I'm going to move myself to the alien invasion, write a newspaper report about the aliens invading the Earth. I'm going to just launch the app and see what it's like. Okay, write a newspaper report about aliens invading the Earth. What you'll notice on here is we do have this nice template that you can print out on A4 paper if you wish to. We also have some appropriate clip art which can be dragged and dropped, moved anywhere. I then have some prompts. What I can change is what's in the button, what appears in the tag when I hover over a button, and also what appears when I click the button as my sentence starter. So how do I do this? Very, very easily. Click on the mortarboard and click OK. What you should notice now is you've got another nice purple TV and you have pencils so that you can now start to edit all of this. I'm going to change witnesses. I'll change witnesses to who. The text, that would be the sentence starter. A member of the public. And the tooltip, the thing that hovers. Okay. That's pretty much the same. So I'm going to leave that one. This is quite clever. I can add some sounds as well. I could record my own voice on here giving instructions, or it could be that there's some special words that pupils need to know how they sound or some definitions. I'll just put the sheep on just so we can see what happens. Click OK. Now you can see already we've got the who, the fact that there's a sound, we've got our little flag that comes up. If I click right in here and then click on the button, a member of the public is our sentence starter. And clicking on the loudspeaker gives us our sheep sound. If I'm happy with that, I can actually save this because I might want to use it lots and lots of times, or I might just want to revisit it next year. That gets saved into the My Work area and you can then just bring it back out with all the other resources that you may want to use. You may also have noticed the spanner. If I click choose, and there are lots of other ones behind here already made for you, I now have a writer's checklist, which again you can see you can edit, you can make it appropriate to the particular group of pupils who are using it, and the pupils then know what it is you are actually looking for. They can go down their checklist as they're doing their work and hope that they are going to satisfy the criteria that you are asking. When you've done that, you can just click, move that out of the way so you can see, you can just click on this cross and everything is set. It's out of teachers mode now. I can take that checklist away at any point using that tick. And then what I would have to do is save this. And I would save it as my version. And I put that as being yellow because I know it's for my yellow group. And save. Now I can come out of that. If I didn't save it as my version, then next time I went back into this particular activity, it would just be clean again as I found it when I first went in. Now to set the work. Work, my work, alien newspaper yellow, set to do. I then add my description of what I would like the pupils to do, set their objectives, enter tags, write a report. Next, exactly the same as it was before, then I would just set it for my yellow group. Set to do, close. I can look behind my to-dos and see that I've set this, write a report, assigned to everyone in the yellow bear group. Notice this one's come to the top because it's not been set for the whole class, it's just been set for a small group of pupils. So there we have it, pretty much. That's how you could use your Purple Mash to set work, to-dos, be able to see the work as it's coming back in. If I go down to class, and I go to my class of demos, I can look at my to-dos and jump into any of the folders. I can also go to Pupils, look at individual pupil work, but also, if you remember earlier when we closed a to-do, a subfolder was created for each of the pupils, and inside there you can see any of the work that your pupil has done that you've asked them to do. If I show it as a table, you can see quite clearly all of those different activities. Also, just by scrolling through, we can see the sorts of levels, general gist of how Ben is doing, how many oranges, how many reds, and how many greens. We're back on the home page. For further help, just go behind this button here, and you can see we've got how to manage users, a guide to to-dos, the data dashboard, and saving work online. I hope you found this useful and you continue to enjoy using your Purple Mash.